Let's look at exactly how a single microscopic breach can shut down the most sophisticated powerhouse on Earth, your heart. It all starts deep within the critical transit lanes of the left anterior descending artery, often called the AD. This is the body's primary shipping route for oxygen. Picture a lone red blood cell navigating these high-pressure waters. Everything seems routine until you reach a specific coordinate where the arterial wall begins to buckle under the strain of years of high-velocity flow. According to biological alerts issued by the cellular surveillance system, a microscopic fissure has just opened in the vessel's lining. This is a severe and dangerous breach of standard physiological protocol. But here's the crucial detail. There was absolutely no warning. No alarm bells, just a silent, jagged tear in the smooth inner hull of your artery. In response, the body's defensive systems don't issue a radio challenge. They react instantly. But this is where the paradox begins. A tiny biological grain of dust, a cluster of platelets and proteins, is starting to gather at the site. It's barely a few microns wide. To put this in perspective, you are looking at a small, regional microscopic event trying to enforce a total blockade against the world's most advanced biological navy, your entire circulatory system. If this tiny blockade holds, the heart muscle downstream will begin to starve. Physical damage isn't just a risk. It's an immediate threat to the entire global economy of your body. One wrong move and the power goes out, permanently. So how will the body respond to this escalating blockade? And how does a cluster of cells, no larger than a speck of dust, manage to paralyze a 300-gram engine of pure muscle that has been beating since before you were born? Well, let's look at the 4 key tactics this microscopic killer uses to bring an empire to its knees. How? Well, the strategy here isn't to face the entire circulatory system head-on. That would be a losing battle. Instead, this microscopic insurgency relies on a form of biological asymmetric warfare. To understand how such a small cluster of cells can paralyze a massive organism, we have to look at the 5 key tactics they use to enforce their blockade. The first, and perhaps most effective, is the swarm. In the naval world, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard uses hundreds of small, fast attack craft to overwhelm a target. Inside your artery, the role of these mosquito boats is played by platelets. Normally, these are just peaceful, inactive fragments drifting through the current. But the moment that wall breaches, they undergo a violent transformation. They grow jagged tentacles and begin to aggregate in the thousands, then the millions. They don't try to block the entire vessel at once. Instead, they swarm the transit lanes of the injury site. Individually, a platelet is nothing. But in a coordinated swarm, they create a physical barrier that the heart's high-pressure flow cannot easily displace. They present more targets than the body's natural anti-clotting systems can track and neutralize, effectively overwhelming the defensive sensors of the arterial wall. Moving to Tactic 2, the silent killer. In the Strait of Hormuz, the threat of naval mines turns a routine transit into a nightmare. Inside your body, this is the role of fibrin. If platelets are the fast attack craft, fibrin is the minefield. As the chemical alarm bells ring, the body's command and control activates the coagulation cascade. This is a strictly calculated sequence of enzyme reactions that culminates in the creation of long, sticky strands of protein. These are the fibrin mines. But they aren't just sitting there. They are active, patient, and highly lethal. They weave themselves into a dense, invisible net across the shipping lane, trapping red blood cells and white blood cells that were just trying to pass through. Suddenly, a normal, healthy cell is turned into a physical obstacle. The goal here isn't just a military victory, it's an economic one. By trapping these cells, the clot denies safe passage for oxygen, the vital currency that keeps your heart muscle alive. This creates immediate biological pain for the cells downstream, which begin to suffocate as the supply chain is severed. But here's where the geography of the vessel becomes a force multiplier. This is Tactic 3, the kill zone. The Iranian coastline is rugged and mountainous, providing perfect cover for mobile missile launchers. Your arteries are no different. In a healthy teenager, the artery is a smooth, wide-open highway. But in a middle-aged adult, the coastal geography has changed. Years of cholesterol buildup have created rugged, mountainous peaks of plaque known as atherosclerosis. These are the fortified bunkers of the vascular system. These ridges create turbulent eddies in the blood flow, much like the shallow reefs of the Persian Gulf. This turbulence makes it difficult for heavyweight immune cells to operate efficiently, but it is the perfect environment for a clot to take root. The clot uses these plaque mountains as camouflage, growing in the shadows where the blood flow is slowest. This effectively turns the artery into a kill zone where the heart's energy supply is under constant threat of a total shoot and scoot blockade, with nowhere for the oxygen-starved cells to hide. Then comes Tactic 4, the ambush threat. In narrow waters, diesel-electric submarines can sit silently on the seafloor, waiting for a high-value asset to pass overhead. In your blood vessels, we call this the thrombus threat. A clot can sit for hours or even days, partially attached to the arterial wall, remaining almost impossible to detect by the body's standard surveillance protocols. It waits, growing larger and more unstable until the pressure reaches a breaking point. Then, the nightmare scenario happens, the breakaway. This is a surprise ambush designed to damage high-value assets like the brain or the lungs. The clot detaches and becomes an embolus, a stealth torpedo launched into the deep channel of the circulatory system. For the heart, this is invisible until the moment of impact. It's a surprise attack designed to disable the most critical flight deck operations of the human machine, and it happens with blistering speed. Finally, we can't ignore Tactic 5, the chemical drone warfare. Iran has invested heavily in UAVs to blind their enemies. Your body uses cytokines and free radicals in a similar way. When the vessel is under attack, the site releases a massive wave of inflammatory signals. In a controlled conflict, these signals help coordinate a response. But in a runaway blockade, they act like loitering munitions. These suicide drones crash into the sensitive sensors of the surrounding healthy cells, causing them to swell and lose function. The goal is to blind the fleet's local sensors, halting the normal flight operations of the vascular wall. This leaves the entire section of the heart vulnerable to a massive coordinated failure. In quick succession, these 5 tactics pass through the body's strike group defenses. The results are devastating. As the swarm grows, the minefield tightens, and the chemical drones blind the local response, the flow of oxygen is reduced to a trickle. This isn't a swift, clean victory for the clot. It is a grueling, high-risk naval operation that is now reaching a critical tipping point. The picket line of the immune system is being pushed back. The invisible dome of protection over the heart is about to collapse. Vòng máu chính thức bị chặn đứng và các tế bào cơ tim bắt đầu gửi đi những tín hiệu VHF tuyệt vọng nhất. Oxygen is cankiet, and a total blackout is imminent. The question is, how does the most advanced biological navy on the planet launch a counterattack before the entire empire falls into darkness? Well, the answer lies in a high-tech wolf pack of enzymes and a robotic mothership of medical engineering. How? So, how exactly would the most advanced biological navy on the planet launch a counteroffensive against an entrenched microscopic blockade? When the Lady Artery, the body's most critical oil choke point, is occupied by a rogue thrombus, the heart doesn't just surrender. It initiates a strictly calculated multi-phase response. Instead of risking a total system failure, the autonomic command center relies on a layered defense. Phase 1, the picket line. The moment the sensors detect a drop in downstream pressure, the heart's picket line activates. This isn't about a clean surgical strike yet. It's about holding the front. The autonomic nervous system floods the channel with adrenaline, increasing the engine RPM of the heart. This raises the blood pressure, attempting to physically shove the blockade through the channel using sheer hydraulic force. But here is the major problem. Increasing the pressure against a solid blockade is a high-risk gamble. The pressure is too high, the artery might rupture. If it's too low, the heart muscle begins to die. To counter this, the body deploys its own version of a quiet hunter, tissue plasminogen activator or TPA. These are natural, high-precision enzymes released from the arterial walls. Their job is simple: handle the nightmare scenario. TPA is like a scout drone launched to identify the weak points in the clot's minefield. It doesn't destroy the clot alone, but it prepares the theater for the heavy hitters. This brings us to Phase 2, the robotic bomb sweepers. This is where biological imagination meets absolute mathematical precision. A blockade's greatest threat is the fibrin net, the silent killer weaving the clot together. To neutralize this, the body utilizes plasmin. Think of plasmin not as a blunt instrument, but as a robotic mothership designed to sit safely outside the minefield while its chemical drones do the work. The process is strictly calculated: detect, localize, classify, identify, and neutralize. The plasmin enzyme is an incredible piece of natural engineering. It works on a molecular level, tracing the long, patient fingers of the fibrin strands. Interestingly, plasmin wasn't designed for brute force. Its weapon of choice is molecular cleavage. It identifies the specific chemical signatures of the fibrin mines and begins cutting the crosslinks with the precision of a laser-guided strike. It snips the mesh at strategic nodes, turning the rigid, lethal net into harmless, soluble fragments. In quick succession, it can pass through the clot's defensive layers and achieve 10% impact, then 20%, slowly eroding the blockade from the inside out. But what happens when the natural swarm of plasmin isn't enough? What if the mosquito boats of the clot are too numerous? This is where the Navy, or in this case, the emergency response team, calls in the medical air power. Phase 3, the Maverick missiles. When a patient reaches the hospital, doctors launch a coordinated airstrike using thrombolytic drugs like Tenecteplase. Though usually categorized as simple medicine, in the vascular world, these are precision-guided weapons. Once they are injected into the shipping lanes of the bloodstream, they act exactly like an AGM-65 Maverick missile. They don't waste time on healthy tissue. They are steerable, electro-optical guided molecules that the pilot, the drug's chemical structure, steers directly onto the clot's engine compartment. The psychological impact of this medical air power alone is a massive deterrent to the clot's expansion. As the Tenecteplase reaches the blockade, it unleashes a massive 30mm cannon burst of enzymatic activity, tearing the fiberglass-like structure of the clot to shreds in a 1-second chemical burst. It's an aggressive, ruthless offensive designed to clear the channel at blistering speed. However, even with Maverick strikes, the geographic advantage of the Plaque Mountains still remains. The artery is still narrow. The mountainous, rugged terrain of the atherosclerosis is still a threat. This brings us to the final, most brutal phase. Phase 4, death at sea level, the Apache Guardian. In the medical world, this is known as a stent. While a drug operates at a medium altitude, the Boeing 64E Apache equivalent, the Stent, works right down in the threat envelope. Low, fast, and ruthless. A specialized team of interventional cardiologists launches a robotic submarine, a catheter, directly into the danger zone. This 39-foot-long, or rather, meter-long flexible tube dives straight into the kill zone, carrying the most devastating weapon in the arsenal. Once the mothership catheter reaches the blockade, it deploys a balloon-expandable steel fortress. Imagine a 24 fast attack boat swarm being physically crushed by a massive expanding shield of cobalt chromium. As the balloon inflates, it hits the clot with the force of a salvo of 70mm hydro rockets. It doesn't just clear the clot, it physically snaps the keel of the blockade in half. It smashes through the earth and concrete of the Plaque Mountains, pushing them back into the arterial wall with a 5,000-pound pressure equivalent. The Stent is then left behind as a stationary, heavily armed anti-missile defense system parked right on the edge of the shipping routes. It acts as an invisible dome over the AD, ensuring that nothing launches from the plaque-filled shore to block the flow again. The shipping lane is restored. The invisible channel is widened. The flight deck operations of the Heart can resume. But here's the thing, these attacks happen to everyday people too. All it takes is a spam email of a high-fat meal, a jump call of chronic stress, or an online breach of sedentary living for your personal biological data to be compromised. So, how exactly can you prevent a blockade before it ever starts? How do you maintain the front line of your own biological empire? The answer lies in the literal combat ship of your lifestyle. It's about taking your personal health data back. Because in the world of high-risk naval operations, the best defense isn't just a powerful Apache or a Maverick missile. It's the quiet hunters, the daily habits that keep the waters safe for passage overhead. How do you establish your own picket line? Well, the answer is simpler and more brutal than you think. How? But here is the reality. These naval-grade blockades don't just happen in the Persian Gulf. They happen to everyday people, and most of the time, we're the ones who leave the maritime borders completely unguarded. Think of a high-fat meal or a sedentary afternoon not just as a choice, but as a severe lapse in naval intelligence. You are effectively leaving the straits open for a swarm of cholesterol to take root. A single month of neglect, of ignoring the reports from your own body, can lead to a total biological bankruptcy that no amount of emergency funding can fix. To defend your empire, you have to understand the geography. Just like the Strait of Hormuz, your body relies on 3 critical strategic choke points. First, the carotid artery. Think of this as the gateway to the capital city, or brain. A blockade here doesn't just halt traffic, it blinds the entire command and control center. Second is the abdominal aorta, the deep channel at the heart of your torso. If this main line is mined, every territory downstream faces a catastrophic blackout. And third, the femoral artery, the long-range supply line for your lower territories. Block this and your mobility, your ability to project power is gone. These are the 3 Hormuz straits of your survival. But at the end of the day, the ultimate countermeasure isn't defense, it's offense. While modern medicine can drop the biological equivalent of a GBU-72 deep penetrator bomb, completely wiping out a mountain of hardened plaque in a single massive explosion, the true victory lies in the quiet hunters. It's the real-time surveillance of a healthy lifestyle that prevents a single shot from ever being fired. Because in this war, the best victory is the one where the blockade never forms. If you're ready to see how your body's frontline infantry handles a full-scale viral invasion, check out our analysis of the immune system right here.